Welcome to 365 Motivationals. This is your go-to channel for daily inspiration, timeless wisdom, and practical strategies to unlock your full potential. Whether you're here to spark new ideas or rediscover your inner strength, we're thrilled to have you with us on this transformative journey. If you enjoyed today's video, please like it to help us reach more people who need a boost of motivation. Drop your thoughts or favorite takeaways in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And for those who haven't yet, subscribe now to join our growing community of dreamers and achievers. Let's uplift, inspire, and grow together, one day at a time. Summary of The Joys of Living by Orison Swett Marden. Orison Swett Marden's The Joys of Living is a heartfelt celebration of the beauty, purpose, and abundance inherent in life. Written with Marden's signature optimism, this book encourages readers to embrace life's opportunities and challenges with gratitude, courage, and an unyielding belief in their ability to thrive. The central message of the book revolves around the idea that life is a gift meant to be savored, appreciated, and lived to the fullest. Marden emphasizes the importance of cultivating a positive outlook and recognizing the blessings in both the big and small moments of daily existence. The book explores themes such as finding joy in the present moment. Marden reminds readers to avoid dwelling on the past or worrying excessively about the future. Instead, he advocates for living fully in the now, where true happiness resides. The power of gratitude. Gratitude, according to Marden, is a transformative practice that can shift perspectives and attract greater abundance and joy into one's life. Overcoming adversity with optimism. Life's challenges, far from being roadblocks, are opportunities for growth and self-discovery. By maintaining a resilient spirit, readers can turn difficulties into triumphs. Pursuing personal growth. Marden highlights the value of self-improvement and the pursuit of knowledge as vital components of a fulfilling life. Marden's uplifting anecdotes and timeless wisdom serve as a powerful reminder that happiness is not found in external circumstances, but is cultivated from within. The book inspires readers to awaken their inner joy, share kindness with others, and embrace a life rich in meaning and purpose. The Joys of Living is a beacon of hope and a guide for anyone seeking to lead a vibrant, fulfilling, and joyful life. It is a must-read for those eager to rediscover the magic of living with passion, gratitude, and positivity.
I living today, in the here and now. Happy the man and happy he alone, he who can call today his own, he who's secure within can say, tomorrow do thy worst, for I have lived today. Dryden. There never was a land so dear, but found its hallelujah here. If an inhabitant of some other planet were to visit America, he would probably think that our people were all en route for something beyond, some other destination, and that where they happen to be living is merely a way station where they unpack only such of their luggage as they need for a temporary stay. The visitor would find very few people actually living in the here and the now. He would find that most people's gaze is fixed upon something beyond, something to come. They are not really settled today, do not really live in the now, but they are sure they will live tomorrow or next year when business is better. Their fortune greater, when they move into their new house, get their new furnishings, their new automobile, get rid of things that now annoy, and have everything around them to make them comfortable. Then they will be happy. But they are not really enjoying themselves today. Our eyes are so focused upon the future, upon some goal in the beyond, that we do not see the beauties and the glories all about us. Our eyes are not focused for the things near us, but those far away. We get so accustomed to living in our imagination and anticipation that we lose much of our power of enjoying the here and the now. We are living for tomorrow, and yet, when tomorrow comes, it still will be tomorrow. We are like children chasing a rainbow. If we could only reach it, what delight. We spend our lives trading in futures, building air castles. We never believe that we have yet reached the years of our finest living, but we always feel sure that that ideal time of life is coming. Most of us are discontented, restless, nervous, and unhappy. There is a faraway look in our eyes, which shows that we are not content with today, that we are not really living here and now, that our minds are on something away beyond the present. The great majority of people think that the proper thing to do is to live almost anywhere except right here and now. Many people dwell on the past with its rich but lost opportunities, its splendid chances, which they have let slip. And while they are doing this, they waste the precious present which seems of little account to them today, but which tomorrow will begin to take on a new value in their estimation. It is astonishing what new virtues and forces we are able to see and to develop in regretful retrospection, the moment these have passed beyond our reach. What splendid opportunities stand out after they have gone by? Oh, what could we not do with them if we had them back? Happiness for many people is marred by memories of unfortunate mistakes or bitter experiences in an unhappy past. To be happy, one must learn to let go, to erase, to bury, to forget everything that is disagreeable, that calls up unpleasant memories. These things can do nothing for us but sap the very vitality which we need for correcting our mistakes and misfortunes. An old farmer was once asked at a meeting of the Agricultural Congress to give his opinion on the best slope of land for the raising of a particular kind of fruit. "It does not make so much difference," said the old man, "about the slope of the land as the slope of the man." Many a farmer who has the right slope makes a good living and gets a competence on very poor soil, while the farmer who does not slope the right way barely exists upon the richest soil. Happiness does not depend so much upon our being favorably environed as upon the slope of our mind. It is not enough to extract happiness from ideal conditions. Anyone can do that. But it is the self-mastered, the self-poised soul who can get happiness out of the most inhospitable surroundings. Paradise is here or nowhere. You must take your joy with you, or you will never find it. The trouble with us is that we expect too much from the great happenings, the unusual things, and we overlook the common flowers on the path of life, from which we might abstract sweets, comforts, delights. It is difficult for many people who are honestly striving to make the most of themselves to see how they can possibly get happiness out of their monotonous, humdrum vocations to which they are chained by necessity or on account of those who are dependent upon them. These people would get a good lesson by studying the bees, who, every minute during the day of the honey season, are finding sweets in every weed, in poisonous flowers, in things in which we would never think of looking for anything good. If we are ever happy, it will be because we create happiness out of our environment with all its vexations, cares, and disheartening conditions. He who does not learn to create his happiness as he goes along, out of the day's work with all its trials, its antagonisms, its obstacles, with all its little annoyances, disappointments, has missed the great life secret. It is out of this daily round of duties, out of the stress and strain and strife of life, the attrition of mind with mind, disposition with disposition, out of this huckstering buying and selling world, that we must get the honey of life, just as the bee sucks the sweetness from all sorts of flowers and weeds. The whole world is full of unworked joy mines. Everywhere we go, we find all sorts of happiness-producing material, if we only know how to extract it. Everything is worth its while if we only grasp it and its significance. Half the joy of life is in little things taken on the run. The men and women who move the world must be a part of it. They must touch the life that now is and feel the thrill of the movement of civilization as the great life drama is enacted. Do you ever realize that you are now actually living the life which looked so rosy and radiant with promise in your childhood and adolescence? Do you recognize in the days and weeks as they slip by that iridescent dream of the future, which then enchanted your youthful fancy, as a mirage in a desert charms the senses of the weary traveler? Do you ever stop to think that the time you are now trying to kill is the very time you once looked forward to so eagerly, and which seemed then so precious, that the moments which now hang so heavily on your hands are the same that you then determined should never slip from your grasp until you had extracted from each its fullest possibilities? Why does what looked like paradise to you, when viewed through youth's telescope, now seem but a dreary desert? Because your vision is distorted. You are looking at your environment from a wrong point of view. You are disappointed, discontented, and unhappy because you did not find the fabled bag of gold at the foot of the rainbow, while you go on squandering, in useless repining, the time that, properly used, would convert your present-seeming desert into the paradise of your early dreams. Yes, here in this miserable, hampered, despicable actual wherein thou even now standest, here or nowhere is thy ideal. Work it out therefrom, and working, believe, live, be free. Fool, the ideal is in thyself, the impediment too is in thyself. Thy condition is but the stuff thou art to shape that same ideal out of. What matter whether such stuff be of this sort or that, so the form thou give it be heroic, be poetic? O thou that pinest in the imprisonment of the actual, and criest bitterly to the gods for a kingdom wherein to rule, know this truth: the thing thou seekest is already with thee, here or nowhere, couldst thou only see. You thought that when you reached the golden land of the future, fruit would fall into your lap without your preparing the ground or planting or watering the seed. You dreamed that you would reap where you did not sow. You are still looking forward, always following a mirage. You will wake up someday and discover, perhaps too late, that there is nothing in mature life for the man who will not pay the price in youth. We cannot separate our lives from time. Why is it that we are so extravagant, so thoughtless in our waste of time, especially in youth, when we cling so tenaciously to life? You cannot separate a wasted hour from the same duration of your life. If you waste your time, you must waste your life. If you improve your time, you cannot help improving your life. How few people ever see the identity between their life and time. They seem to think they can waste time in all sorts of foolish ways, and even in dissipation, without wasting the life. But the two are inseparable. Remember that when you throw away an evening or a day, or do infinitely worse than throw it away, by indulging in pleasures which demoralize and tend to deteriorate your character and to form vicious habits, you are deliberately flinging away a part of your very life, and that when you grow old, you would give anything to redeem the precious time you have squandered. There is only one way really to live, and that is to start out every morning with a firm resolution to get the most out of that day, to five it to the full. No matter what happens or does not happen, what comes or does not come, resolve that you will extract from every experience of the day something of good, something that will make you wiser and show you how to make fewer mistakes tomorrow. Say to yourself, "This day I begin a new life. I will forget everything in the past that caused me pain, grief, or disgrace." I once knew a mother who, after death, had taken away every one of her children. Her husband, and nearly all her relatives, prayed that death might relieve her from her awful suffering. But after a few years she was cheerful and happy again, consoled in helping others. The world did not seem so black, and life such a failure as she thought it would be. There were too many who needed her mothering. Nature is marvelously kind to us. She is a great physician. She puts the healing balm of Gilead on all our wounds and cures our mental ills in a wonderful way. If it were not for this great healing potency of nature, the world would be funereal enough, for there are few of us who have not been borne down very close to the sorrow of death. Resolve every morning that you will get the most out of that day, not of some day in the future, when you are better off, when you have a family, when your children are grown up, when you have overcome your difficulties. You never will overcome them all. You will never be able to eliminate all the things which annoy, trouble, and cause friction in your life. You will never get rid of all the little enemies of your happiness, the 101 little annoyances, but you can make the most of things as they are. The reason why our lives are so lean and poverty-stricken, so disappointing and ineffective, is because we do not really live in the day. We do not concentrate our energy, our ambition, our attention, our enthusiasm upon the day we are living. Resolve to enjoy yourself today. Enjoy today, and do not let the hideous shadows of tomorrow, the forebodings and the things you dread, rob you of what is yours today, your inalienable right to be happy today. Just have a little heart-to-heart talk with yourself every morning and say, "It does not matter what comes or what goes today, what happens or what does not happen. There is one thing of which I am sure, and that is, I am going to get the most possible out of the day. I am not going to allow anything to rob me of my happiness, or of my right to live this day from beginning to end, and not merely to exist. I do not care what comes. I shall not allow any annoyance, any happening, any circumstances which may cross my path today to rob me of my peace of mind. I will not be unhappy today, no matter what occurs. I'm going to enjoy the day to its full, live the day completely. This day shall be a complete day in my life. I shall not allow the enemies of my happiness to mar it. No misfortune in the past, nothing which has happened to me in days gone by, which has been disagreeable or tragic, no enemies of my happiness or efficiency, shall be a guest in my spirit's sacred enclosure today. Only happy thoughts, joy thoughts, only the friends of my peace, comfort, happiness, and success shall find entertainment in my soul this day. None of my enemies shall gain admittance to scrawl their hideous autographs on the walls of my mind. There shall be no admittance today except to the friends of my best moods. I will tear down the black, sable pictures and hang pictures of joy and gladness, of things which will encourage, cheer, and increase my power. Everything which ever handicapped my life, which has made me uncomfortable and unhappy, shall be expelled, at least for this day. So that when night comes, I can say, I have lived today. A clean, new, optimistic start like this every morning will very quickly revolutionize one's outlook upon life and increase one's power tremendously. It is just a question of mastering the brain, of forming new thought tracts in the soft brain tissue, making a path for a new happiness habit. Why should you make yourself miserable by living in the past, by dwelling upon your past mistakes, regretting your failure to seize the opportunities which you think would have made you rich, or blaming yourself for things that have injured you? I have never known a person to accomplish anything worthwhile who was always lashing himself, criticizing his past, and lamenting blunders, mistakes, and other things that had already happened. It will require every bit of energy you can muster to make your life a success anyway. And you certainly cannot focus your mind on the present with that vigor that accomplishes things when you are thinking or living in the past. Every bit of force which you expend upon the things which you cannot change is not only thrown away, but you have so much less to make your future a success and so compensate for your unfortunate mistakes. Every particle of force spent in regret is worse than wasted. It does not matter how unfortunate or how black the past has been, it should and can be outlived. Haul down those black, threatening, deplorable pictures in the mind. They only discourage and incapacitate you from doing good work in the present. Drop from memory the unfortunate error of judgment. Forget the unhappy experience, no matter how much it has humiliated or handicapped you. Put your blunders out of mind and resolve to do better in the future. Nothing is more foolish, nothing more wicked, than to drag the skeletons of the past, the hideous images, the foolish deeds, the unfortunate experiences of yesterday into today's work to mar and spoil it. There are plenty of people who have been failures up to the present moment, who could do wonders in the future if they only could forget the past, if they only had the ability to cut it off, to close the door on it forever and start anew. However unfortunate your past has been, forget it. If it throws a shadow upon the present, or causes melancholy or despondency, if there is nothing in it which helps you, there is not a single reason why you should retain it in your memory, and there are 1,000 reasons why you should bury it so deeply that it can never be resurrected. One of the silliest, most inane tasks any human being is ever guilty of undertaking is that of trying to modify, to change the unchangeable. There is a strange propensity in human nature to locate all the good things of life in an existence that is yet to come to us. Man is immortal now, is not to be, but is immortal. We are perfect now in our God nature, and if we would only claim these things as ours now, instead of trying to acquire them in the future, we should grow by leaps and bounds. Happiness is something that we must take as we go along, or we lose it. When the children of Israel were passing through the desert, they were fed with manna fresh every day. Some of the people did not have faith enough to trust the Lord to feed them every day, and so they tried to store up some of this manna for future use, but it spoiled. This taught the Israelites a lesson of faith. They could not keep the manna for the future. They must trust the great giver of all good. They must have faith that he would feed them every day. Our happiness is like this manna. We must gather it anew every day we live. Everywhere we see people who have tried to store up what was intended for their daily happiness, as manna for the future. But they are surprised to find that it has spoiled, evaporated, would not keep, that it must be used as we go along. We must use happiness when fresh, like fresh plucked flowers. There are a great many things, such as good impulses, which are good for today, but not for tomorrow. How many people delay the kindness, the expression of love, until the person is dead, beyond their reach, and then try to atone for a neglected past by flowers and tears at the funeral. Today is the day to say the kind word that springs to your lips, to obey the generous impulse that stirs your heart. These people who haunt your mind, and whom you promise yourself that you will help sometime, need your help now, and you can give it more readily now than at any other time. Every tomorrow has, in addition to its own cares and duties, all those which were neglected in the past, while its opportunities and possibilities are no greater than were those of yesterday. What makes you think that you're going to do wonderful things tomorrow when today seems so commonplace, so void of opportunity? Why does today look so prosy, tomorrow so rosy, so poetic? What reason have you to believe that you are going to be ideally happy and harmonious, unselfish and helpful at some indefinite time in the future, when today you are irritable and selfish, uncharitable, and unhappy? How is it that in some distant future you expect to get so much time to write letters to your friends and to those who are sick and discouraged, and also to devote to self-improvement, to broadening your mind, when you can find no time for these things today? What is there in tomorrow that can work such magic of improvement upon today? Why do you feel that you are going to be so generous tomorrow when you are so stingy and narrow today? Why think that you are sometime going to pick up the many things lying about the house, almost useless to you, but which would be valuable to those who are poorer than yourself? That you are going to make up a box of cast-off clothing, books, pictures, and other things that you can spare just as well as not, and send them next week or next month to those who really need them? You have not done it in the past. Why delude yourself into thinking that you will do it in the future? How many people, not through stinginess but from sheer thoughtlessness and ignorance of the needs of others, stow things away in cellar or attic that might help to open the way to a great future for some poor boy or girl? Go up to your attic today, look in your trunks and about your house, and see how many things are lying around that you can not only dispense with, but which are really in your way, that would bring a measure of comfort and happiness to others less fortunate than yourself. Look over your old clothing and pick out the articles that you will never wear again, but which would prove a real godsend to some poor girls out of employment, or who have so many depending upon them that they cannot afford to buy necessary clothing for themselves. Do not keep those things until they become useless, thinking you may need them sometime. Let them do good now, pass them along today. They have served your turn. Let them be messengers of good cheer, evidences of your love and thoughtfulness of others. Do not be selfish, at least with the things that you can spare. Do not hoard them, thinking that you may want them later. You can make an infinitely greater investment in your own character, in satisfaction and happiness, by giving them away than by keeping them, in anticipation of some future contingency that will never arise. You may not be as magnanimous as you ought to be. Giving will soften your heart and open a little wider the door of your generosity. There are probably books in your library, or lying around the house which no one has looked in for years or will read for years to come, which would be of inestimable value to boys and girls who are trying to educate themselves under great difficulties. Pass them on today. The more you give away, the more you will have and enjoy. The habit of stinginess strangles happiness. The habit of giving multiplies it. A highly cultured and refined woman not long ago told me of her struggles to get a musical education. She was so poor that for a long time she could not afford to hire any kind of an instrument, and used to practice for hours daily on a piano keyboard, which she had had marked on a sheet of brown paper. While struggling to get along in this way, she was invited to a dinner at the home of a wealthy family. After dinner, she was shown over the house by her hostess, who took her from kitchen to attic. "And there," says the lady, "in the attic, I saw stored away an old piano, which I would have given anything I had in the world to have possessed. I would have been glad to have walked a long distance every day for the privilege of practicing on it. I cared nothing for the sumptuous dinner, the handsome furniture, the beautiful pictures, and evidences of luxury on every hand. But that old piano, lying unused in the attic, haunted me. It would have opened the door to paradise for me, yet I dared not ask for it. There are hundreds of poor girls in this country struggling to get a musical education today who cannot afford any kind of a piano. Why not give your superfluous piano or organ to some struggler? No one is so poor that he cannot give something to enrich another every day of his life. He who hoards his joys to make them more is like the man who said, 'I will keep my grain from mice and birds, and neither the ground nor the mill shall have it.' What fools are they who throw away upon the earth whole handfuls? Give, give, give now, today. Help yourself to grow larger, broader, happier, more useful to humanity as the years go by. Many a man defers his happiness until he gets rich. Then he is surprised to find that his manna is spoiled, that he should have eaten it when first given. Deferred happiness and the deferred good deed do not keep. Everyone should start out with a tacit understanding with himself that whatever comes to him or does not come, that whether he is successful in his particular undertaking or unsuccessful, he will at least be happy as he goes along, that he will not allow anything to rob him of the enjoyment which ought to come to everyone each day. He should resolve that he will not allow any little accident or incident, or any conditions, however trying, to interrupt the natural flow of his sense of well-being, comfort, and happiness. Remember that yesterday is dead, tomorrow is not yet born. The only time that belongs to you is the passing moment. One might liken the 60 minutes in the hour to flowers that live for only 60 seconds and then die. If we get the good that belongs to us here and now, we must extract the sweetness of each passing minute while it is ours. That is the real art of living in the today. A professional at living. He who is his own monarch contentedly sways the scepter of himself, not envying the glory to crowned heads of the earth. Sir Thomas Browne. Is it not a strange thing that while we ought to make a profession of living, most of us are not even amateurs in this art of arts? We never learn the business of real living. We become specialists in our profession or our business, but in right living, which makes or mars the happiness of life, we never become experts. We know next to nothing about the human machine, which holds the secret of all our success and happiness. We pay much less attention to it than we do to our business mechanism. The human machine is the only medium by which the soul and the mind connect with the material world, and this marvelous mechanism, this temple beautiful, should be kept in the superbest condition, for whatever mars it mars the soul's expression. In our present system of education, we are taught nearly everything except the very thing that we ought to know most about, the art of living. The schools and colleges teach scores of things that we never use directly in practical life, but scarcely a word about our marvelous human mechanism, and many a college graduate cannot even locate or describe the vital organs upon which his very life and welfare depend. He may know a lot about dead languages which he will never use. He may know much about the earth, about history, politics, philosophy, and sociology, but about his human machine, this marvelous mechanism which means more to him than anything else in the world, he has been taught practically nothing. The art of living is more important to man than anything else, and yet he goes through life using the human machine, ignorant of its construction. Though it is a million times more delicate and requires infinitely finer adjustment and more expert attention than any other mechanism in the world. What would you think of a man who would buy the finest and most expensive automobile on the market and put it in charge of a man who had never seen such a vehicle in his life and who knew absolutely nothing about it, and then, with his family, start out for a tour of the world? To become an expert chauffeur, a man must know how to take an automobile to pieces and put it together. He must be familiar with every part of the mechanism, must know the functions of each in its relation to the whole, because precious lives depend upon his knowledge, his skill, and his expertness. But what does the average person know about this marvelous human machine? So delicately adjusted that every one of the billion of cells composing it is modified by each thought and each mood that passes through the mind. A professional at living would not mar his day's run of the human machine, as most of us do, would not impair its marvelous expression, its output, by overeating or undereating, or by irregular living. He would not allow himself to be crippled for days by burning out its delicate brain and nerve cells with the fires of hot temper, by shocks of hatred, jealousy, fear, or worry. Instead, he would protect this marvelously delicate and sensitive mechanism from its multitude of physical and mental enemies. What a pity that people do not know the science of human engineering, of training and running the human machine so that there will be the least possible friction, the science of making the most of everything in the environment, of grinding everything into material for life's great masterpiece, just as Michelangelo ground every experience of life into paint for his great masterpieces. The best locomotive engine that science has been able to construct is able to transmute into propelling power less than 20% of the energy stored in the coal, and only 1% of the coal's energy in the electric light powerhouse ever reaches the electric bulb to give light to the world. The human machine, even at its best, is not yet able to transmute into practical propelling power or light, but a pitiably small percentage of human energy or intelligence. Under scientific management, the human machine would be capable of expressing marvelous efficiency, harmony, perpetual happiness. But who ever heard of a real expert, a master, in the art of scientific living? We keep the human machine crippled a large part of the time by bad management, so that it is incapable of expressing a tithe of its possibilities. Many men who are very successful in their business make a daily botch of their living. How few people do you know who are really happy? And yet, each human being is trying to be happy, really wants to be happy, but is expressing discord instead of harmony because his machine is out of order, and he either does not know how to remedy the defect, or he is not willing to pay the price in training, in scientific effort, to become an expert in human engineering. How many pangs we suffer, what humiliations, what embarrassments, simply because our human machine is not scientifically cared for and perfectly adjusted. Think what we suffer through the sin of tired nerves, because the human machine has been abused so that it is incapable of running without friction, of expressing harmony. We did not want to pain those we love, to be irritable, fretful. We did not want to destroy the peace of our home by our nervous, touchy, irritable, nasty moods. We did not want to injure the people we insulted and abused when out of sorts. We had no idea of hurting them, but the human machine was out of order. The brain cells and the nerve cells were poisoned by fatigue, by the broken down cells, the debris from the previous day's run. The sensitive nervous mechanism expressed discord when it was made to express harmony, simply because it was not running smoothly, was not properly adjusted. It often balked when it had not been properly refreshed and rejuvenated by a good night's sleep. Worry, anxiety, overeating, too many stimulants, dissipation, the violating in some way of nature's laws was responsible for all this. We had no idea of reviling, criticizing, chastising, abusing our friends, or treating with contempt the people with whom we transact business. But the human machine was upset through the lack of scientific management, of systematic, regular care. There is nothing, except exposure in crime, that is so humiliating to a man who thinks anything at all of himself, as so to lose control of his human machine that it races wild, doing all sorts of damage, while he, the chauffeur, is utterly helpless to stop or control it. One of the most humiliating things about a hot temper is that when a man has lost self-control, he makes an awful spectacle of himself. When he has lost command of his brain, he reveals the brute in him, which ordinarily he tries to hide from his fellows. All his vicious traits, his mean, contemptible, nasty disposition, the side of himself which he would give anything in the world to conceal from his dearest friends. Everything is brought out to the light and to the censure of those whose esteem he covets. Do you, who say you cannot control your temper, that the explosion comes before you have time to think, ever consider that your brain is not you, that it is absolutely within your mind. Control, that the great human machinery is outside the mind, that you can control every thought and be master of every emotion with proper training, so that your machine will never run wild, the brain never race away with you? You are the man behind the brain. Did you ever consider that there are some people in whose presence you never would think of losing self-control, no matter what the provocation? There is somebody whose very presence would keep you from losing your bearings under the most provoking circumstances. Almost every man knows some woman, or has some friend, before whom nothing in the world could move him beyond his self-control. On the other hand, before an employee, upon whom he looks as part of the machinery of his business, for whom he has no real regard or sympathy, or at home, where he feels little restraint, he would lose his temper at the slightest provocation. This proves that we can control ourselves to an infinitely greater extent than we seem to think. The most explosive-tempered person would not show anger at a reception or dinner to distinguished persons, no matter what the fancied insult might be. He would not think of such a thing. If we had the proper regard for every one, if we respected even the humblest human being, as we ought to, and respected ourselves sufficiently, we should have little trouble in controlling ourselves. The majority of people carry in their minds and in their hearts grudges, jealousy, envy, antipathies, prejudices, which, although not very pronounced in their expression, are festering within and poisoning the inner life. Just think what a revolution would come into our entire lives if we were even careful about the tone of our voices. They are not able to cope with conditions and preserve harmony. Their irritable ways indicate that they are out of harmony with their environment, that they hold the wrong attitude towards it, and hence they cannot be masters of the situation, but are its victims. People who are inclined to lose their temper, to fly into a passion at the slightest provocation, little realize that if they permit many of these conflagrations, the nerve cells will burn out the short circuits from constantly crossing the wires, injuring the fine, delicate mechanism of the brain, and after a while that they will lose the power of self-control and be unable to restrain themselves. They will become hair-triggered and explode automatically. There is no more humiliating spectacle than the exhibition of a man's meanest and most contemptible and most brutal qualities when in anger. At such a time, reason is strangled. Wisdom hides her head in shame, good sense and good judgment get down off the throne, and the beast vaults upon the royal seat, and anarchy rules throughout the mental kingdom. After you have passed through such a passion fire, you feel that something precious has been burned out of your life. Your self-respect, your dignity, have been scorched in the conflagration. I once saw a child in a perfect rage of passion taken before a mirror, and he was so ashamed and chagrined at the awful spectacle that he stopped crying. If adults could only see themselves when they are burning up with passion, when the conflagration is raging through their brain and tearing their nervous system to tatters, when the beast looks out of the eyes, it would seem as though they could never again be induced to make such spectacles of themselves. The consciousness that you yourself are a power back of the brain, that you are in charge of the human machine, is a wonderful aid to self-control. The story is told of an elderly woman who went to a photographer's to have her picture taken. She was seated before the camera wearing the same stem, hard, forbidding look that had made her an object of fear to the children living in the neighborhood, when the photographer, thrusting his head out from the black cloth, said suddenly, "Brighten the eyes a little." She tried, but the dull and heavy look still lingered. "Look a little pleasanter," said the photographer, in an unimpassioned but confident and commanding voice. "See here," the woman retorted sharply. "If you think that an old woman who is dull can look bright, that one who feels cross can become pleasant every time she is told to, you don't know anything about human nature. It takes something from the outside to brighten one up." "Oh, no, it doesn't. It's something you can work from the inside. Try it again," said the photographer, good-naturedly. His tone and manner inspired faith, and she tried again, this time with better success. "That's good, that's fine. You look 20 years younger," exclaimed the artist, as he caught the transient glow that illuminated the faded face. She went home with a queer feeling in her heart. It was the first compliment she had received since her husband had passed away, and it left a pleasant memory. When she reached her little cottage, she looked long in the glass. "There may be something in it," she said, "but I'll wait and see the picture." When the photograph came, it was like a resurrection. The face seemed alive with the lost fires of youth. She gazed long and earnestly, then said in a clear, firm voice, "If I could do it once, I can do it again." Approaching the little mirror above her bureau, "Brighten up, Catherine," she said, and the old light flashed up once more. "Look a little pleasanter," she commanded, and a calm and radiant smile diffused itself over her face. Her neighbors soon remarked the change that had come over her. "Why, Mrs. A., you are getting young. How do you manage it? It is all done from the inside. You just brighten up inside and feel pleasant." No one can be really happy or successful unless he is master of his moods, unless he becomes an expert in running his human machine and keeps it mentally and physically always in superb condition. Everything depends upon the machine. Of course, a complicated machine may do remarkable things, even with the sand grinding out its delicate bearings, and though not properly cared for or lubricated, but the same machine would do wonders and would last infinitely longer if it were kept in perfect condition, perfectly adjusted. A watch keeps accurate time not merely because it has a faultless mainspring, a superb balance wheel or hairspring. Perfect time does not come from any one part of the watch, but is the result of the action and absolute adjustment and symmetrical relation of the scores of wheels, bearings, springs, etc. If the watch were absolutely perfect, barring one imperfect cog of one of the tiniest wheels, this imperfection would defeat the ends of the watchmaker. Not only must every little screw or pin, every individual cog, add its perfection to the perfect whole, but all of the parts must also be correlated so as to produce harmony. Health to the body is what time is to the watch. It is the perfect time of the body, the harmonious relation and inner relation of all the parts. The slightest imperfection anywhere would throw the whole body out of harmony. Well-developed muscles, capacious lungs, a perfect liver do not necessarily constitute health. Perfect health is the result of the harmonious action of all the organs of the body. Health of the moral nature results from the harmonious action of all the moral faculties. A moral chronometer cannot keep perfect time with a defective part anywhere. Power and happiness